home fires are awfully serious, and we want to make sure you get all the information to make sure you know how to prevent and prepare for, as well as respond and recover from a home fire. So with that, we're going to stop sharing the results. Real quick, Steve, you can go back one slide. I just want to go over a little bit of the housekeeping. We welcome questions. So I want you to participate and ask some questions. So feel free to use your chat. In the chat, just direct any questions towards me, and we'll make sure to read them out loud and answer them. If we run out of time, I'll also post my information where you can reach out to me directly. I should first start off with hello. My name is Melissa Altman. I'm the Preparedness Manager for Southern California American Red Cross. I am very excited to see you here today because it means you care. It means you're thinking about preparedness and you know that it's important to be prepared. So I really appreciate you taking the time. A couple more just housekeeping items. If you have any issues with your screen, just you can move you can change the speaker view. The directions are on the screen. You can move it around on your screen to make it a little bit more easier for you to see the slides. All right, with that, today we are here to talk about home fire preparedness, and I would just want you to know that it's important because this is very common. There is not one person in the United States that isn't affected by home fires. You are very likely to experience either yourself or a friend or family member to experience a home fire. So it's information we all need, and we have to take these steps now so that we're better prepared to recover from and respond to a home fire. So if you can go to the next slide, Steve. All right, we're going to talk about some, not only the preparedness, but the actions you can take. We'll go next slide, Steve, one more. I'd like to introduce you to our wonderful speaker, Steve Deal. Steve is amazing. I can't say enough good things about Steve. He is a Red Cross volunteer, but that really doesn't capture all that he does. So he actually was the CEO of a tech company that he founded and operated for over 25 years. He's been a speaker coach, and he helps high school students to even Donovan State Prison inmates to develop those speeches, even for local TEDx events. So it's amazing what he does. But as a Red Cross disaster responder, he's been with us for over 5 years. And Steve actually is one of the major volunteers that responds to fires near and far in our counties. He's been to about 120 home fires himself. And he's also responded to our larger, hurricanes, floods, wildfires. So he knows what he's talking about. He has direct experience with that. And he sees firsthand the heartbreak and just the devastation from a home fire. And he knows that if you do take these steps, that you will be better off. And if you just today take one action item away from today's presentation, we know that you'll be better prepared. And we want to each do our part. So I don't want this education to be the end of it. Today, I'd like requests from you to take action. Do something today so you and your loved ones are better able to respond to a home fire. All right, and with that, Steve, over to you. Oh, we can't hear you, Steve.
Unmute. There we go, with all that experience, that wonderful introduction, and I leave it all muted. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this. I think that we have some really interesting information, and as Melissa said, I think you'll find some takeaways in here that can really help to make you and your family safer. So to go over our agenda for today, here's what we're going to cover. We'll start off with a little bit about fire statistics and the dangers that we have there so we understand the nature of the problem. And then, the best thing we can do is just not have a fire. So we're going to go over what are the typical causes of home fires, and more importantly, really, how can we prevent having them? Oh, and I'm supposed to remind Melissa to record this session. So just so you all know, this one is going to be recorded, I think, for a fire department or someplace. And then we'll go over prevention of those. And then preparation, despite our best preparation to prevent them, we may still have a fire. What can we do in advance to minimize that problem? And if we do get a fire in our home, how can we survive? And then finally, what we see a lot in the Red Cross is what's the recovery path look like after that? This Malay proverb that's on here is something I really like. Just because the river is quiet does not mean the crocodiles have left. And you know, that's how it is a lot of the times with preparation. In our daily lives, we go from day to day and things aren't happening. So it's kind of tomorrow that we'll get around to doing preparation. But those of us in the Red Cross who've been to a number of these disasters know that tomorrow doesn't always wait. So we will urge you, as Melissa's already said, to take at least one step, you know, from the things we covered today. So let's just dive right in. And so, as Melissa said, they're more common than we think, and easily deaths and injuries and home fires outpace all the other disasters combined, you know, hands down. You can look at these numbers. Every day, on average, in our country, 7 people die in home fires, 36 are injured. Just in our Southern California region, that's the 5 counties, we have in 1 year almost 800 home fires that we've responded to, and we only respond to a relatively small percentage of them. So we don't go to every home fire. There's way more than that. What the numbers tell us, according to the National Fire Institute, is there's a 1 in 4 chance that in your lifetime you're going to need to call the fire department in order to respond to a fire that's bad enough in your home where you need some help. So that's a very, very common disaster. So let's understand a little bit about what these fire dangers are. I mean, some of these may seem at first kind of obvious, but really they're not as obvious as we think sometimes. First off, it's just way faster than a lot of us think. You know, as Melissa mentioned, I've been to a bunch of these fires. I've talked to a lot of people who've survived, and I hear it almost every time. They can't believe how fast the fire is. In no time at all, their home is up in flames. So we're going to talk a lot more about that, you know, how quickly it happens and why it's so much faster now. It actually is faster than it used to be. Hot. I mean, that seems kind of obvious. Yeah, fire's hot. We all know that, you know, but I mean, it's way hotter than what we realize sometimes. So, you know, and just knowing how much hotter it gets with some elevation. So from something that might be 100 degrees on the floor, if we just stand up, we might be in 600-degree temperatures, which is going to cause us some serious problems very quickly. Dark, which is exactly the opposite of how we think about fire. Yeah, fire flames are bright, but they very quickly in a home fire put off a lot of noxious fumes, black smoke, and so forth, that we can be in complete darkness at no time. I've talked to bunches of people who were totally disoriented because they just couldn't see anything for all the smoke. And it's deadly. You know, that smoke, those toxic gases, they can cause asphyxiation very, very quickly. There's really 3 times as many people die from smoke and toxic fumes than die of actual burns. So that's a serious problem. So we've mentioned this thing about fast and faster a few times. So 40 years ago, it was pretty well accepted that you had quite a bit of time, you know, relatively speaking, to get out of your home. You know, back then, you maybe had 17 minutes, if you can imagine. Today, we're talking about 2 to 3 minutes that we have to get out. The reason for that is the materials that are used to build the furniture in our homes, the draperies, even some of the building materials in the homes are much more synthetic. And those synthetic materials burn far faster than cottons, wools, all those natural things that we had previously. To kind of illustrate that, this is from an Underwriters Laboratory video. They built 2 little rooms. The one on the left has got old-fashioned furniture, so to speak, cottons, wools, and so forth. And the one on the right is modern day synthetics, including the carpet, the furniture itself, as well as the draperies. So at this point in there, where you see those yellow circles, those firefighters have just started a fire at the same time. 1 minute later, not much is going on. You can see some flame actually on the one on the left, the natural one. The one on the right, there's a little plume of smoke there. But look about 2 minutes into it. The one on the right is really taking off. And the one on the left, the natural room, we're still just seeing a little bitty flame down there. 3 minutes in, look at how quickly this has gone. See that black smoke up there? And there's a lot of hot up there as well. Meanwhile, the cotton furniture on the left has just got a small fire going on it. At 3 minutes and 15 seconds, if you look closely on the right-hand room, there is vapors coming up out of the carpet from that synthetic carpet. That stuff is explosive. And then very shortly after that, just 15 seconds later, the whole room is starting to burst into flames. And at 3 minutes and 40 seconds, it was flashover. So flashover is the term that describes when virtually everything flammable in a room explodes in flame. You know, everything is on fire. So at 3 minutes and 40 seconds, that's not very long after that fire was started, it's a total flashover situation. Meanwhile, you can see the left room, you know, there's a significant flame there, but it's nothing like that. In fact, it doesn't reach flashover until almost 30 minutes after the fire was started. So today's rooms, 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and it used to be 29 minutes and 25 seconds. That's why we don't have much time, and we'll be emphasizing that quite a lot. Okay, we're going to get into those fire causes, but I believe we've got a poll right now.
We do. Yes,
all right.
we do. All right, we're going to ask you all another question. It should be on your screen now. The question is, what is the #1 cause of home fires? Let's see what you guys think. So, all right, we got some coming in. All right, we're testing you. Let's see what you got. All right, they're flooding in. Do we think it's electrical? Do we think it's cooking, heaters and fireplaces, unattended candles, or smoking? And most of you have answered. A couple more trickling in. Okay, couple more seconds and we'll stop here. All right, so let's share these results. Steve, what do you think?
Wow, there you go. Okay, so we're going to cover all of these. All of these are causes of fires, but what is #1? By far, #1 is cooking. And it can go very, very quick. I mean, again, I hate to use the words quick and fast so much, but that's kind of what we have. In the case of a home fire, say a grease fire on a skillet, in just 30 seconds, we can go from a small fire like that to an entire kitchen being in flames. I've been to a number of these fires. You can always tell it right away because as a minimum, there's a hole in the roof above the range. Very, very common. But it happens very, very quickly. Look at those numbers in the lower right-hand side. Nearly half of all home fires start from cooking. So that's just huge. Almost 1 in 5 of the deaths are caused by cooking and nearly half of the injuries. So cooking is a big deal in terms of fire causes. So if we're going to try to prevent fires, starting with cooking is going to be a very, very good place to do it, because if we can get this right, then we can knock out about half of the causes of fires in our home. So some simple things to think about. #1, we want to be attentive when we're cooking. All right, especially when we have something that's frying. That's where a lot of these fires start. But the ones I've seen has mostly been starting with frying, or because there's a lot of clutter around the area, papers and things that catch on fire. So keeping attentive, keeping flammable things away, keeping our sleeves rolled up so we don't get fire on our clothing, keeping children back away when we're cooking, and this thing, keep a lid nearby, that is a big deal. So, and that's because that's one of the fastest ways that we can put out a grease fire in say a skillet or a frying pan. If we just keep a lid that fits tightly nearby, and if we get that into flames, and here's usually what I've seen happens: a phone call happens, a kid's screaming in the other room, and we go in there, we get distracted, okay? We don't see it, it bursts into flames. But as soon as we do see that that's happened, if we have that lid there, we can just drop it on and that will smother the fire and we've saved the day. Other ways that we can smother fires with salt or baking soda, certainly a fire extinguisher can do that. One thing we don't want to do is grab what sometimes seems the natural thing to do, and that would be, say, a cup of water or something and throw it on the fire. What that does is it splashes flaming grease out of the fire, out of the pan, and all over the kitchen, and we've just made the problem a ton worse. So cooking fires and how to put them out, big time. #1 cause of home fires here in Southern California, I think it's probably not our #2, but nationwide it is. And we just had one here in the San Diego area last week that was caused by this sort of thing. So it does happen here as well. That's home heating. Could be from a fireplace. We've seen plenty of those fires. And often these electrical space heaters, pellet stoves, I've seen exhaust flumes overheat and catch the attics on fire. But these little space heaters, that's something we want to keep away from draperies, bedding. We want to make sure it will shut off automatically if we get knocked over by, say, a dog or something, and it won't get a carpet on fire. So space heaters, another thing to watch out for.
Real quick, Steve, you got a question in the chat?
Fire
And
away.
it goes back.
Sorry.
Nice play on words there. I like it. The question it regards to the fires on the stove. The question is, can you use a glass lid to put the fire out? Does that work?
Yes, you can use a glass lid to do that. I mean, assuming it's like a frying pan glass lid, it's going to go out very quickly. So yes, but the glass lid, metal one, is going to be fine to put it out with.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right.
That's it for now.
Okay, smoking is actually the #1 killer. And a lot of these, the ones that I've seen, and I think is pretty common, is when somebody falls asleep smoking a cigarette, and then it smolders. And what that does is quietly smother somebody. So that's a pretty common cause of that happening. Also, smoking around oxygen. We had an explosion actually here in San Diego. It's been a few years now, in an apartment where a man had oxygen, lit up a cigarette, it exploded, blew all the windows out of his apartment. Thankfully, he was not badly injured, but he was injured. So these are very, very dangerous. So ideally, we don't have anybody smoking in our homes at all. But if we do, we want to make sure that care is taken, that those cigarette butts get put out, that we're attentive, that we're not having anybody that's falling asleep, and so forth. Candles. Some of the saddest fires I've seen have been with candles. I guess it's because they're kind of celebratory in many cases, but they can be very dangerous. Typically what happens is somebody has it too close, just like this photograph shows, too close to some draperies that get blown around. Maybe a cat goes up and knocks a candle over and it's not noticed. So this happens a lot more than we think is going to happen. So we want to, if we're going to use candles, we want to make sure they're kept at least a foot away from any combustible things. We want to make sure that we don't have animals that's going to knock them over, or children that are going to play with them. A lot of those electric ones, the fake battery operated ones, they look pretty good these days. I mean, I admit they're not as nice or romantic, say, as a real candle, but they're pretty good. And I would say, to the extent we can, use something like that. Avoid using candles, but use real caution. 8,000 fires a year in our country from candles. Electrical, that was actually in our poll, that was your #1 choice, was electrical. And I'm not surprised, because there are a lot of electrical fires, and they're caused by a number of different things. Sometimes they're things that we could have avoided ourselves, like not having old frayed electrical cords, or appliances that need repairs done. We're not running cords underneath carpets or underneath furniture. We're not overloading circuits. We're paying attention to any like dimmer switches that are running hot. They really shouldn't be very hot. Or any other thing, any arcing, circuit breakers that go off pretty often. These are all signs that there's something going on, and those are things we can take action on. And a lot of the fires are preventable with those measures. But sometimes these fires happen and they're electrical in nature, and it had to do with the way the house was built. We've seen some of that. We've seen appliances. I saw one microwave and one dryer that weren't even being used. And one of them, they just burst into flames all on their own. It's a defect from the manufacturer. All right, so sometimes things are just not going well for us, and we get these things, but we can prevent a lot of them. Probably the majority of them are things that we can prevent by looking out for these kinds of problem areas. And then clothes dryers. The most common cause of clothes dryer fires is an accumulation of lint, both in the duct that leaves it, as well as inside the machine itself. And it does accumulate actually pretty quickly. So most of us know that we need to clean that screen that's there every time we use it. And that helps a lot, but there's still a lot of this lint that goes around that screen and deposits itself. So this before and after picture of this duct here, that's pretty common. They're not difficult to clean. There are companies that will come out and do it. You can buy kits online or at Lowe's or Home Depot and do it yourself. I bought one, and about every year, year and a half, I run it through and clean them out. But so about a third of these fires are caused by ducks. So keeping them cleaned, paying attention to what's going on, it's going to help us out there. Then children and pets, this kind of surprised me a little bit, but look at the numbers down below there. 300 people killed each year due to children playing with fire, and about 1,000 home fires caused by pets every year. This just happens just way more than what we realize. I've mentioned a couple of times things like cats jumping up and knocking over candles or heaters, things like that, knocking down a fire grate, say in front of a fireplace. We had a crazy one here. 2 large dogs were playing while their residents were away. They were jumping up and down in the kitchen. They were jumping up on a gas range. One of them managed to knock a knob on to where gas started coming into the home, and then they kept playing. Then one of them jumped up and hit the igniter, and it exploded. It blew all the windows out of the condominium. The dogs were fine, incredibly enough, but the condo was just about totaled. So the recommendation there is, if you have large dogs that may be goofing around, dogging around, whatever they do, remove the knobs from your appliances, so they can't do that, because it does happen. And I was told by the fire investigator that's not the first time they've seen that. So children and fires, we want to make sure our children know that fire is a tool. It's not something to play around with. Everybody's fascinated with fire, so it's something that we want to make sure that they understand that. And we want to keep those matches away and all that. Some of it's pretty obvious, but it is something we want to watch out for. Okay, so we've talked about things that we can do to prevent a fire. I mean, that's really the ideal thing, is not to have one. But despite our best efforts, we may still have a fire. I mean, that's just how it works. So now let's talk about things we can do before a fire happens, to where we're better prepared for it. All right. So make a home escape plan. And I know the first time I heard this, I thought, why do I need a plan to figure out how to get out of my own home? Well, now having talked to a whole bunch of people who had trouble getting out of their own home because of everything that was going on and not really having a plan in mind in advance, I begin to understand the need for it. I mean, picture this. In the middle of the night, let's say we're sleeping, and the smoke alarm goes off. We'll be stressing big time the need to have working smoke alarms. A smoke alarm goes off. We wake up. We go to the hall door, and we check to see if it's safe to go out. It's hot. We know we can't go into the hallway. There's a fire there. So we go out a window. We go out a patio door. But down the hall are the children's rooms. Do they know what to do? Do they know how to get out? Do they know where to go? All right. So that's why we want to have a plan in advance, so that everybody knows what they're going to do. We want to see 2 ways out of every room that at least has a way. There are some rooms like bathrooms that we don't have that, but other rooms, bedrooms and so forth, we should have 2 ways out. And that means we need to think about how we're going to get out of those rooms. And another important piece of that is where we're going to meet when we're done. If we don't all meet at a known place where we can take inventory of who's there, then we're going to think maybe somebody's in the home. We're going to be tempted to go in and rescue them. And in fact, maybe they were already out, but on the other side of the house, and now somebody else is in danger, and we may have a child who becomes an orphan or something. I mean, these are things that do happen. So it's not my intent to dramatize it or anything, but we want to know that we can, how we're going to get out. We're going to practice our plan. So and I've talked to parents who do this every 6 months. They'll have the kids go lay down. They'll go and they'll activate an alarm by pushing the test button. Everybody goes through the drill, and then they go and have ice cream and make a big family outing of it. It's worth it to know what to do when the fire happens, so we don't lose valuable time. And when we're making that plan, we want to think about the number of things, for the people that are there, for children and older adults. Do we have bars on windows? Can we open them? If we can't open them, we need to get somebody out there, make a change to those where they can be opened. People do die from not being able to get out through those things. Do we need some escape ladders like are shown in this photo? They're available online. Lowe's, Home Depot, and other places have them, to where we can get out of there. What about children and pets? Who's going to get them? Do we have a plan of who's going to go get the pet? Who's going to take care of this? We need to think these through in advance, because as we've already shown with the speed of the fire, we won't have time to sort all that out once there's a fire that's in play with us. Okay, I've mentioned smoke alarms already, and I guess that if we were going to talk about the one minimum action, this would probably be certainly high on the list, is to make sure we have working smoke alarms. Where do we want them? We want them in every sleeping area. We want them in a common area outside the sleeping areas. We want at least one on every floor of the home, and that's the minimum that we're looking to have. All right, so we want to make sure that they're working by testing them every single month. All right, every month we want to give them a quick test. If they have removable batteries in them, we want to replace those at least once a year. But the smoke alarms that we buy today, we're not seeing so many out there with replaceable batteries anymore. They have batteries that will last 10 years, which is also the life of the smoke alarm itself. The sensor in there is pretty well near the end of its life by then as well. So we get those type of alarm, they're going to last us 10 years, and we just test them every month, and we're going to be in good shape. Now we want to make sure that children, children know what to do. They know what a smoke alarm means and what they're going to do when they hear one. And one of the things to think about is sometimes children can't hear that frequency, that the smoke alarm puts out. So if we find that our children do that through a test, let's say, then we want to make sure we've taken actions, to accommodate that. But look at this number down here. Homes that have smoke alarms that experience a fire versus homes that do not have smoke alarms that experience a fire. Half the deaths, 50% death reduction in homes with working smoke alarms. So that's big, that's huge. So we want to make sure that we've got ourselves covered on smoke alarms. There's a number of, there's a lot of little details we can go into on smoke alarms. There's a couple of different types. So ionization alarm and photoelectric are two common types, and you can buy a combination alarm that has both. So the ionization type works best for fast flaming fires. They have less smoke, faster flames. They react faster to that type of a fire. The photoelectric works best for smoldering fires, so smoky fires that have less flames. And of course, the combination one is going to pick up both sides of those things. Some special needs things we want to remember, we want to take into account everybody that lives in our home. When we're putting together our plan, when we're thinking about our smoke detectors and so forth. So somebody who's deaf or hard of hearing, we may want to put a bed shaker on. All right, these are pretty easy to get actually, and they will start to shake the bed when a smoke alarm goes off. We can have strobe lights, that will flash when they're there. I mentioned children sometimes can't hear the high pitch of those, and other people may not. You can buy a translation device basically that will throw out a low pitch thing. So there are solutions. So if you're not too sure, how, a little bit of research and you will be able to find a solution for that. Carbon monoxide alarms is really not so much about home fires per se, but it often is a question that comes up. And so I just wanted to cover it very briefly. So carbon monoxide can happen in your home if you have gas burning appliances. Could be a heater, could be a stove, could be a dryer. And if you have incomplete combustion of the flame and say the exhaust is blocked, it can be as simple as a bird has built a nest in your heater exhaust during the summer and block that. Carbon monoxide comes in, it's a silent killer. And we've seen in the paper from time to time, a whole family can die from carbon monoxide poisoning. So if you have gas appliances in your home, you definitely want to have at least one carbon monoxide alarm in your home to warn you of that. Fire extinguishers, all right? They rate right up there. Do we want them? Yeah, it's a great idea to have fire extinguishers. Where do we want them at? Certainly someplace accessible. We want to be able to get to them quickly if we have a fire. So as a minimum, at a central place in every level of our home. In the kitchen's a great place. Garage, great place. It's unbelievable how many fires start in garages. We see them all the time. So in the garage, in the laundry room, out on your patio, you have barbecue grills and so forth. These are all good places to have fire extinguishers. Most home fire extinguishers that you're going to run into in the stores are going to be ABC classified, and that's what you want. You want one that's as big as you can get it, but not so big that you can't handle it. So, the larger it is, the more capacity it has, the better shot that you're going to have. You want to make sure that it's working, so you can't test it, because once you've tested it, you've already discharged it. But you can look at the gauge on there, make sure it's in the green. And generally they have a life of maybe 12 years. So even if it's in the green, you might want to consider replacing it after about 12 years. And let's see, I thought I had, I will get into that a little bit later. And one other thing in the preparation area, and that is to minimize your financial hardship. When we go to these fires, if nobody was injured or died and the pets are all okay, generally what I mostly hear is people saying, "Oh my gosh, I've lost my credit cards, I've lost my insurance papers, I lost all my family photos, I can't replace those. How are we going to even go get money out of the bank? I have nothing." This happens a lot. All right, so we want to take measures, to avoid having that happen to us. So certainly some things we could do is take copies of documents and things, put them in a safe deposit box. That'd be a great idea. You can get a fire resistant safe, but I might want to underline the word resistant there. Unless you really put some serious money into it, it's not going to be fireproof. And so we have seen situations where people have resistant safes and everything didn't survive that. What I like to do, and I do live on the perimeter of a wildfire area and a wildlife reserve, actually, is I consider, like in my home, that I need to think of it as a total burn down situation, the total everything lost. And so for that reason, I scan all the documents, photos and stuff, and I put them up in the cloud. There's a lot of ways you can do that these days. So you can do it for free, say on Google Drive, for example, and some other similar services to that. Or you could put them on your computer and have a backup service. I use Carbonite, but there's many other services that can do this. It backs up within minutes every single file, so that I can access all those documents from any computer in the world, as long as I know the credentials to access it. So it's I like the cloud idea for doing that. It might be something you want to think about. And then appropriate and adequate insurance. Homeowners insurance, renters insurance. About probably well over half of the fires we go to for renters, they don't have insurance. That's a very, very tough recovery path. I've gone to 4 homeowner fires with no insurance. It just shocked me the first time. But sometimes people will inherit a home, say from some grandparents. They never had a mortgage. Nobody ever talked to them about mortgage, about insurance, and they don't have it. And the house is gone, and their recovery is probably not even going to happen. Their life has been changed in a serious way with no past. So if you might know somebody in that situation, it wasn't a fire, but I was at a hurricane where some adult children took me to the side regarding their parents. We were talking about their home was crushed by a tree. And I asked about insurance, and they said, sure. And the kids took me to the side, said, no, they both have dementia, and they forgot to pay the premium. So, watch out for your loved ones, other people who may, for one reason or another, not have insurance. It's definitely not where we want to be. I added the word adequate on this slide some time ago, and that's because, many times people have insurance, but it's not enough. Now, usually, it's enough for, say, if just my home burns down. But if we have a wildfire and there's thousands of homes that burn down, like in Paradise and Santa Rosa, the cost to rebuild skyrocket because of limited supplies and limited labor. And there's a number of those people that found that their insurance was actually inadequate to be able to rebuild anytime soon. So It may be something you want to consider, verify the rebuild costs of your home yourself. Don't think that the insurance company is necessarily monitoring that. And you might want to see if you can get a rider for another 25% or whatever you think it makes sense to where you have a shot at being okay after a major event like that. Okay, we're ready for another poll. And this one here, sleeping with the door open or the door closed is the question. You ready there, Melissa?
I'm ready. Let's do it. Here, I'm launching it right now. All right. Question is, in the event of a fire, is it safe to sleep with the bedroom door open or closed? Let's see your answers. What do you guys think? All right, they're coming in. Got about half of the people have voted so far. All right. They keep coming in. All right, is it open? Is it closed, or does it not make a difference? Let's see your answers. A couple more people we're waiting for you. All right, let's end the poll here. Steve, what do you think?
All right, we got a smart group here for sure. As usually, people say that that open is a safer, and we can understand why we want to sleep with the door open. We want to sleep with the door open so we can hear the kids down the hall. We want to sleep the door open so that the house is heated more evenly at night and so forth. But and so most people, in fact, do sleep with the door open. So only 29% of the people always sleep with the door closed. And the question, of course, of the day is, does that matter when it comes to a home fire? Here's another Underwriters Laboratory study. They built a home, a small home, had 2 bedrooms in it and a living room. And what they're going to do is start a fire down the living room. So here, the room on the top, you can see the door is closed. The room on the bottom, the door is open. And they start the fire. This is just like the room kind of we talked about earlier. It's all synthetic furniture. So the fire took off very, very quickly. And you can see that black smoke up there, which is very typical of synthetic materials. In very short order, take a look at these 2 rooms. The one with the closed door, you can just barely see a little wisp of smoke coming in at the upper right corner. But look at this one with the door open. This black cloud of toxic gases and smoke are descending on the bed right there. And here we go. We can take a look at this thing now that they've put the fire out. And what has happened? The room on the left, we can see just a little bit of wisps of where the smoke was started to come in. The room on the right is a total disaster. And that's why it's highly recommended that we sleep with the door closed. I mean, their campaign call is "Close before you doze." The online video for this is really quite dramatic, and I would strongly suggest, because I can tell you it can be difficult to convince other family members that this really matters. I've had that problem in my own home. But if you go to YouTube and search for "Close before you doze," you'll be easily find this video that I took these frames from. And I think you will also be convinced, as I am, that this is a very, very serious thing to do. Lives will be saved if you close the doors. Okay, so we've talked about now preparing and preparation, and we've done all that we can to avoid a fire, to prepare ourselves should a fire happen. Now, what do we have to do to survive a fire? So one of the big questions that we're going to have in our minds as soon as we have a fire is, what do I do? I mean, do I fight it? Do we run? What do we do? All right, if you're not sure, probably the answer is you should err towards getting out. All right, you and the family getting out. So as quickly as possible, you want to get everybody out. You want somebody calling 911. Remember, we talked about a plan. So we want to make sure somebody's calling 911 right away, preferably from a mobile phone, outside the house. Now, if we might consider fighting it for a very short period of time, if it's small, okay, it needs to be a small fire. If it's not spreading, if there's not very much smoke in the room, because remember, we can get disoriented. We could even pass out from smoke in the room. And as long as the fire is not between where you are and your clear way out, okay. If you have a fire extinguisher, let's say, then you might want to go ahead and take a very quick stab at putting it down. You got one shot to do it, and then if that doesn't work, you need to leave right away. So let's talk a little bit about fire extinguishers, because there's been a number of times when people have used a fire extinguisher and it didn't do a thing to stop the fire. So let's talk about what the right way is to use it. And this acronym PASS is something that can help us with that. So P, pull the pin. There's a safety pin on there that keeps people from accidentally activating the fire extinguisher, say when they pick it up, by the handle or something. All right, we're going to pull that pin out. And then A, we're going to aim. And this is the part where usually people go wrong. The tendency is for people to shoot and aim at the flames. What that does is goes right through the flames and doesn't impact the fire at all, because a fire is coming from the base of where the flames are, down at the bottom. That's where something is burning. That's where we want to smother it. We want to aim low at the base of the fire. And then S, squeeze the lever slowly and evenly. We want to get into a whole jerky thing and stuff so we maintain control. And then sweep that nozzle from side to side, on the base of the fire. All right, that's going to be your best bet to smother that fire and to get it out. If that didn't work, you just need to get out of the house. You've done all that you can reasonably do. And remember, you're only going to do that if we meet this criteria and it's safe to do it. We talked a little bit earlier, about escaping from a fire, getting out windows, and all that. But let's go into just a little bit more detail. So we get woken up by a smoke alarm, let's say. All right, we want to look around. Do we see smoke? Do we see what's going on? If we think we're going to need to go through a door in order to go through our preferred exit path, we want to feel the door. If it's hot, we don't want to open that door. There's fire on the other side, or a lot of heat at least. We don't want to go through that door. We're going to go through our backup method. Now, what if we can't get out of the room? I mean, this question does come up. Maybe you're in a hotel room, up on an upper floor. That's a problem. Maybe you're in a bathroom. Okay, so if that were to happen, that's not exactly a desirable place to be, but we want to seal our doors, take sheets or towels or whatever, make them wet if necessary, try to seal around the doors so the smoke and heat doesn't come in, block any air vents that may be in there. If we have a phone with us, we can call 911. If we have, say we're in a hotel room where there's windows that can be seen from the outside, we can hang towels up in there, do something that brings attention to where we are. Okay. As soon as we think there's fire in the home, we want to alert everyone, yelling loudly, "Fire, fire," so that everybody else is aware of what's going on as quickly as possible. Remember, we talked early on about how much hotter that can be just from standing up. 100 degrees to 600 degrees is not uncommon. All right, we want to get down low, crawl beneath that as much as we can, as quickly as we possibly can. And then we want to get out and go to the meeting place. And once we're out, we want to stay out. All right, so there can be all kinds of temptations to go back in. Oh, I left my wallet, my purse in there. Maybe I left a pet. I know it may seem heartless, but going back in to a house that's on fire often ends poorly, so it's just not at all recommended. Firefighters are probably going to be there pretty quickly. They're equipped to handle these kinds of things, so you can tell them what you know, and they can go in and take care of it as best they can. Clothes, I'm sure you've heard the stop, drop, and roll, but it's just a great reminder. So if our clothes get on fire, a lot of times, we get in panic, we start running. That's exactly what we don't want to do. So we want to stop whatever's going on, drop to the ground, roll around, to get it out. If somebody else is there, they can throw blankets on, to get that fire out as quickly as possible. Okay.
Looks like we got another poll.
Oh, we do? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do.
Let's do it. All right, we've got a final question for all of you. You should see it on your screen now. The question is, how often should every home smoke alarm be tested? We did go over this. Let's see what you remember. All right, answers are coming in. Is it every week? Is it every month? When daylight saving time changes, or every year? Let's see what you guys think. And a few more people are answering. All right, I'm going to end right here and show you the results, Steve.
All right. I mean, that's great. That's exactly what we talked about earlier. We want to test it every month. Every month is it. You know, a lot of us are remembering back when it was daylight savings time and all that stuff, but that's old news. So we're going to test it every month. Okay, let's dive into a little bit about recovering after a fire. Okay, so certainly one of the things you want to do is contact the Red Cross. We go to a lot of fires. We can provide some assistance. What do we do? You know, what does that look like even? Some people don't realize that the Red Cross responds to home fires, although we do that more in terms of quantities of events more than anything else, actually. And so, you know, a typical scene for us when we were responding physically, right now we have modified things. We're doing a lot of this stuff virtually, but a family's been burned out of their home. They're standing in front of their home, 3 o'clock in the morning. They don't know what to do. They may have lost their ID. They may have lost everything. You know, the starting point can be all over the map. We have two parts to our program. The first part is our disaster action team wants to make sure they're going to be okay for the next 2 or 3 days. And that may look like a combination of some financial assistance so they can get lodging and clothing, food. It may look like bringing in mental health counselors, health services people to help them get prescriptions, spiritual people. You know, if there's an injury or death, then we have other resources that we can bring in. And then following us as caseworkers to help guide people through this recovery process. You know, one of the advantages of working with such a caseworker is they've gone through a lot of these cases. They know resources that can help out, you know, to help people recover. So contact the Red Cross, you know, and we can probably help you. Certainly, you want to contact your insurance agent as quickly as possible. You know, so some of them are available 24/7, some not so much. You know, but if they are available right away, many times they'll call out the board up service. That's the people who secure your home from windows that are open, you know, burned out and so forth. They may notify restoration companies, so they can be very active with that in many cases. You want to notify your landlord and your mortgage company as quickly as you can. We all want to get back in and find out what's left after a fire, but it can be dangerous. So we want to make sure we don't go back in before the fire department says it's safe to do so. And utilities are typically going to be turned off. We want to wait till they're turned on properly, not try to do that ourselves. All those are dangerous things to do. And when we do go back in, by the way, we want to have breathing protection. And this is a situation where a regular mask and N95 is not really what we want. You know, it's recommended you use a P100 type of mask with, they have carbon filters on them. They're not expensive, $30, $40 at Harbor Freight or Home Depot, Lowe's, other stores. You can get those because the residual fumes that are inside the home are often toxic, you know, and you don't want to be breathing those things. And remember to keep all your receipts when you're in the recovery process for anything you buy, clothing and so forth. You may be able to use that, apply that against your insurance deductible. Okay, and I'm going to turn this over to Melissa to go through a few final things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate all that you went over. A lot to learn, and it's really great information to get out there. So hi, everyone. Thank you again for being here. Today, I just wanted to mention our Sound the Alarm program. So we are currently doing that free home fire safety consultations. And then when you go through the education with us over the phone, you actually qualify for a free smoke alarm. So we want people to sign up because we want them to know this information and make sure that they're taking the necessary steps ahead of time so that they're ready in case they do experience a home fire. So on your screen, you should see the website. It's soundthealarm.org/SoCal. And that way you can sign up for the alarm and their services. You can also call that phone number on the screen. So we do the 3 installations. Some fire departments are currently working with us right now to do it during COVID safely. But Red Cross is on hold. We're gonna start doing the installations again once it's safe to do so. And we're excited to get back out there. Currently, the program has saved 820 some lives. So this program works. And again, it's not just the alarms, it's also the education. So we go through the home fire safety checklist as well as the escape plan to make sure everyone knows what to do and ahead of time to get ready. All right, next slide, Steve. I wouldn't be a good Red Cross person if I didn't mention the volunteer opportunities. So these on your screen are just a few options of ways you can volunteer. We really have something for everyone. There's a lot of different work from home options that you can do safely at your computer over the phone. But the Hotshots is the team that goes out and does the installations. Right now they are on hold with installations, but they're doing the education and signing people up for a later date of the alarms. So we welcome people to get involved in that. We also do blood delivery. So 40% of the blood used in the entire United States is actually collected by the American Red Cross. So it's really important we have volunteers that are able to deliver that life-saving blood to hospitals around the United States. Here in San Diego, we're always in need of more drivers as well as donors. So you consider doing that. We also do the local disaster responders. Steve mentioned that we were very active this year in responding to disasters. So we had a lot of wildfires. I'm sure you've seen them in the news. We want to make sure that we have enough volunteers to respond to those all over. And in our region, at one point, we had multiple fires at the exact same time. So we could always use some help responding to those big disasters. And another thing is the service to armed forces. Some people may or may not know that we actually serve the military as well as retired military and their families. We always are looking for people to work with our military and support those that serve our country. So we want to make sure we're giving back in our own way. And there's, again, plenty more of opportunities. We welcome all, and there's always something for everyone. All right, next slide, Steve. Just so you know, this is how you can get some more information. Kaylee is our senior recruitment specialist, and she can answer questions or kind of get you on the path for the next steps, go through current openings that are on our website. The website to go to is the redcross.org/volunteer. That's the way to get involved. Most of us all started as volunteers. I myself started in the DAP program. I absolutely loved volunteering, and I got more and more and more active doing different responses. Actually started during the lilac fires. And I will say it's one of the most rewarding experiences I ever have gone through in my life. So I welcome all of you. All right, next slide. All right, and I mentioned at the beginning that this is not just about learning, it's actually about taking action. So start your prevention and preparedness today. Don't hesitate. You always say, oh, I'll get around to that some other time. Start it today. So check your batteries, test your smoke alarms, create and practice that escape plan. Make sure that everyone in your household knows what to do and where to go in case there is a home fire, and even have an evacuation plan if you have experienced a wildfire. So, you know, wildfires are happening really year round now. So we want to make sure that every household has a communication plan set in place so they know where they're going to meet each other if they do have to evacuate. And then complete the Red Cross fire safety and prevention checklist. So you may have noticed I've been chatting a little bit in the chat feature. So right now I'm actually going to drop some things in there for you. One of them, the first thing I'll do send you is our preparedness book. This book is meant to be used to help guide you through your prevention and preparedness steps. It is meant to be filled out, so including like your medications and your contacts. So make sure to take certain steps to make sure your kit is up to date and that you have a plan in place and everyone knows what to do. The next thing I want to go over is the fire prevention checklist. This is all about fire prevention and what to do before, during, and after a home fire. So take a look at that. Please share these resources as well. We want to make sure that everyone knows what to do in case there's a fire. And by you looking out for others, you could actually help save a life yourself. So think about it. And finally, I just want to mention that we have additional upcoming presentations. It's every Friday for the next 4 weeks. So please join us. We cover a different topic every time, but they're great presentations. Please pass on the information to any loved ones or people in your communities. We welcome all that want to learn more about how to be prepared, because preparedness takes a huge community to have everyone make sure we know what to do, and we're all looking out for each other. All right, and with that, I open it up to questions. There was a question from earlier, Steve, I just want to get around to it. So in terms of how the Red Cross supports the home fire victims, how do they get in touch with them to make sure that they're being served right now during COVID?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a good question. And it's actually been quite an interesting journey for us to do that, because we're so used to just going right out there, and really that's what we want to do. We want to go out there and really understand what's going on, see the people, help the people, and so forth. But we're doing the best that we can, but yet to keep our workers safe and to keep our clients safe, we don't go out on scene, in most cases. There are exceptions to that. In many cases, what we're doing now is we do it through the telephone. We actually have our people in a team in a video conference so that we can talk with each other and assist the client. We go through all of our process, and in most cases, what people really need right away, the most important thing is a little bit of money so they can get some lodging and get some food and clothing and so forth. And we can actually do an electronic transfer to their bank account of that money. So we find out what their needs are. Maybe they need a health services person who can also contact them virtually. Maybe they need a mental health person. So we have plenty of support that we can draw on, but to the extent that we can, we do it virtually. And I think it's working out pretty well. Now, when it's not working for us, then we just go on scene, and there's a variety of reasons why we might do that.
Yeah, that's great. And one question that comes up a lot is is the help just for families that have lost their home?
No, it knows if somebody is displaced from their home, so if it's not safe for them to stay in their home, that's who we want to help. So, some of the homes are destroyed. Some of them have substantial damage. Sometimes it's a lot of smoke damage, and the fire department saying, look, it's not going to be healthy for them to spend the night there. In fact, they're not going to be back for a few days at least. Okay, when those are the kinds of things that come up, then those are the people we're looking to help.
Yep, that's great. Thank you, Steve. The other question is, can you share your slides? And yes, we'd be willing to share the slides. You please just send me an email. So my email, I will share it in the chat. If you shoot me an email, I can send you a copy of the slides from today's presentation. So, and with that, that is all. Oh, another question just came in, excuse me. How old do we have to be to go and volunteer to help someone who is going through a fire or emergency? That's a great question. So for the people that are physically responding on our DAT calls, we do require that they be at least 18 years of age because they're not supervised by an adult. However, there's a lot of different opportunities for people that are younger than 18. So we encourage all people, all ages to get involved. It is one of the coolest things in my experience. Honestly, when I first started at the Red Cross, the volunteers are such a wide array of people. And I'm talking about every ethnicity and language, background, education level, income level, a lot of different ages. And it is one of the coolest things because we draw on that diversity. We bring in their experiences in life and their own kind of opinions, and we let them help lead our operations and help respond to the public, because our public is so diverse. We need that diversity to represent the public we serve. So it is really incredible to have all ages and all people. So we welcome all. All right, and the question is, will you be sending this recorded presentation? What we're going to do is actually post it to our website. And so I can, again, send you an email when that does get posted. If you want to send me just shoot me an email and I'll send it to you. Again, I'm sending you in the chat right now my email. So if you please send me an email, that way it'll remind me to send you the presentation or to send you the link to when we post the video. And with that, Looks like we're out of time. Sorry, we went a little over. A big thank you to Steve. Steve, you are always incredible. And I love that you speak with such passion about home fires because it comes from your direct experience. So thank you so, so much for being here today and for always doing an incredible job. And thanks to all of you. I appreciate you being here, taking the time out of your day to talk about home fire preparedness. And we hope you join us for the next session next Friday at 12 o'clock. All right. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Shoot me an email if you have any questions.